Hello, everybody. Today we are live with a completely new program. We are inaugurating TES Reading Club here. Books for Life. As you all know, it is very important to read primary sources. The plays, the poems, the novels. And a lot of our students came up with the idea that we can start a reading club under the ages of TES, and we can read books so that we will get the practice, and our friends in YouTube will get to listen to us and listen to the books. So this will be like a live audiobook program. And the reading club can henceforth organize other programs related to books. So it could be a very big venture with the help of all of you. Thank you, Rajbir and others, for joining us. I hope you will like this program. Today, we are reading The Importance of Being Earnest. Let me introduce to you our team. Can you please come, switch on your videos, and please come online, team. This is Oscar Wilde, the author, who's speaking. That's me. We have Butler Lane, read by Vandana. We have Algernon Moncrief, read by Ritu Medhavi. Gwendolyn Fairfax, read by Princey. Lady Bracknell, read by Saumya. And Jack, read by our Reshma. So over to you, Saumya, the organizer of today's program. Please share your screen and start your reading. Good luck, everybody. Thank you all for joining us. Saumya, you ready?
Can you guys see my screen?
Not yet.
Okay, I'll just share. Now.
Yes.
Okay.
Over to you.
Act 1, scene.
Act 1. Morning room in Algernon's flat in Half Moon Street. The room furnished. The sound of a piano is heard in the adjoining room. Lane is arranging afternoon tea on the table, and after the music has ceased, Algernon enters.
Did you hear what I was playing, Lane?
I didn't think it polite to listen, sir.
I'm sorry for that. For your sake, I don't play accurately. Anyone can play accurately, but I play with a wonderful expression. As far as the piano is concerned, sentiment is my forte. I keep signs for life.
Yes, sir.
And speaking of the signs of life, have you got the cucumber sandwiches cut for Lady Bracknell?
Yes, sir.
Oh, by the way, Lane, I see from your book that on Thursday night when Lord Shoreman and Mr. Worthing were dining with me, 8 bottles of champagne are entered as having been consumed.
Yes, sir. 8 bottles and a pint.
Why is it that at a bachelor's establishment, the servants invariably drink the champagne? I ask merely for information.
I attribute it to the superior quality of the wine, sir. I have often observed that in married households, the champagne is rarely of a first-rate brand.
Good heavens, is marriage so demoralizing as that?
I believe it is a very pleasant state, sir. I have had very little experience of it myself up to the present. I have only been married once. That was in consequence of a misunderstanding between myself and a young person.
I didn't know that I'm so much interested in your family life, Lane.
No, sir, it is not a very interesting subject. I never think of it myself.
Very natural, I'm sure. That will do, Lane. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Lane goes out.
Lane's view on marriage seems somewhat lax. Really, if the lower orders don't seem to set us a good example, what on earth is the use of them? They seem as a class to have absolutely no sense of moral responsibility.
Lane enters.
Mr. Ernest Wording.
Enter
How
Jack.
are you? How are you, my dear Ernest? What brings you up to town?
Oh, pleasure. What should bring one anywhere? Eating as usual, I see.
I believe it is customary in good society to take some slight refreshment at 5 o'clock. Where have you been since Thursday?
Jack sits down on the sofa.
What on earth do you do there?
When one is in town, one amuses oneself. When one is in the country, one amuses other people. It is excessively boring.
And who are the people you amuse?
Oh, neighbors.
Got good neighbors in your part of Shropshire, huh?
Perfectly horrid. Never speak to one of them.
How immensely you must amuse them.
Algernon goes over and takes a sandwich.
By the way, Shropshire is your country, is it not?
Shropshire? Yes, of course. Hello, why all these cups? Why cucumber sandwiches? Why such reckless extravagance in one so young? Who is coming to tea?
Oh, merely Aunt Augusta and Gwendolyn.
How perfectly delightful.
Yes, that is all very well, but I'm afraid Aunt Augusta won't quite approve of your being here.
May I ask why?
My dear fellow, the way you flirt with Gwendolyn is perfectly disgraceful. It is almost as bad as the way Gwendolyn flirts with you.
I am in love with Gwendolyn and have come up to town expressly to propose to her.
I thought you had come up for pleasure. I call that business.
How utterly unromantic you are.
I really don't see anything romantic in proposing. It's very romantic to be in love, but there is nothing romantic about a definite proposal. Why one may be accepted, one usually is. I believe then the excitement is all over. The very essence of romance is uncertainty. If I ever get married, I certainly try to forget the fact.
I have no doubt about that, dear Elsie. The divorce code was specially invented for people whose memories are so curiously constituted.
Oh, there's no use speculating on that subject. Divorces are made in heaven.
Jack puts out his hand to take a sandwich. Algernon at once interferes.
Please don't touch the cucumber sandwiches. They're ordered specially for Aunt Augusta.
Takes one and eats it.
Well, you have been eating them all the time.
That is quite a different matter. She's my aunt.
Algernon takes plate from below.
Have some bread and butter. The bread and butter is for Gwendolyn. Gwendolyn is devoted to bread and butter.
Jack advancing to table and helping himself.
And very good bread and butter is too.
Well, my dear fellow, you need not eat as if you are going to eat it all. You behave as if you're married to her already. You're not married to her already, and I don't think you will ever be.
Why on earth do you say that?
Well, in the first place, girls never marry the man they flirt with. Girls don't think it right.
Oh, that's nonsense.
It isn't. It is a great truth. It accounts for the extraordinary number of bachelors that one sees all over the place. In the second place, I don't give my consent.
Algernon says,
My dear fellow, Gwendolyn is my first cousin, and before I allow you to marry her, you will have to clear up the whole question of Cecily.
Algernon brings Cicely, what do you mean? I don't know anyone of the name of Cicely. Lane does.
Enter Lane.
Bring me a cigarette case, Mr. Worthing. Left in the smoking room last time he dined here.
Yes, sir.
He goes out.
Do you mean to say you have had my cigarette case all this time? I wish to goodness you had let me know. I have been writing frantic letters to Scotland about it. I was begging your offering a large reward.
Well, I wish you all would offer one. I happen to be more than usually hard up.
There is no good offering a large reward now. Everything is fine.
Enter Lane with the cigarette case on a salver. Algernon takes it at once. Lane goes out.
I think that is rather mean of you, Earnest, I must say.
Algernon opens case and examines it.
However, it makes no matter. For now that I look at the inscription inside, I find that the thing isn't yours after all.
Because it's mine. You have seen me with it 100 times and you have no right whatsoever to read what is written inside. It's very unmanly thing to read a private cigarette case.
Oh, it is absurd to have a hard and fast rule about what one should read and what one shouldn't. More than half of the modern culture depends on what one shouldn't read.
I'm quite aware of the fact, and I don't propose to discuss more about it. It is not the sort of thing one should talk of in private. I simply want my 6 days back.
Yes, but this isn't your cigarette case. This cigarette case is a present from someone of the name Cecily. And you said you didn't know anyone of that name.
Well, if you want to know, Cecily happens to be my aunt.
Your aunt?
Yes, charming old lady there too. Lives at Stockbridge.
But
Retreating
But-
to back of sofa.
why does she call herself Little Cecily if she's your aunt and lives at Tunbridge Well?
Reading.
From Little Cecily with her fondest love.
Jack moving to sofa and kneeling upon it.
My dear. Oh, sorry.
What on earth is there in that? Come on, Dr. Come on, start now. That's the matter that we are making to think that every aunt should be exactly like her aunt. That's absurd. Heavens, give me back my things.
Yes. Yes, but why does your aunt call you her uncle? From Little Cecily with her fondest love to dear Uncle Jack. There is no objection, I admit, to an aunt being a small aunt, but why an aunt, no matter what her size may be, should call her own nephew her uncle? I can't quite make out. Besides, your name isn't Jack at all. It's Ernest.
It isn't honest, it's Jack.
You always have told me it is Ernest. I have introduced you to everyone as Ernest. You answer to the name of Ernest. You look as if your name was Ernest. You're the most earnest looking person. You are the most... It's perfectly absurd. You're saying that your name isn't Ernest. It's on the cards. Here's one of them, Mr. Earnest Worthing B4. The Albany, I'll keep this as a proof of your name is Ernest. If ever you attempt to deny it to me or to Gwendolyn or to anyone else.
Algernon put the card in his pocket. In the Ernest in town and Jack in country, and the secret case was given to me in the country.
Yes, but that does not account for the fact that your small aunt Cecily, who lives at Tunbridge Wells, calls you her dear uncle. Come, old boy, you had much better have the thing out at once.
My dear Algie, you talk exactly as if you were a dentist. It's very vulgar to talk like a dentist when one isn't a dentist. It produces false impression.
Well, that is exactly what dentists always do. Now go on, tell me the whole thing. I may mention that I have always suspected you of being a confirmed and secret bunburyist, and I'm quite sure of it now.
Bunburyist? What on earth do you mean by a bunburyist?
I'll reveal to you the meaning of that incomparable expression as soon as you're kind enough to inform me why you're Ernest in town and Jack in the country.
Well, produce my cigarette case first.
Here it is.
Algernon hands cigarette case.
Now produce your explanations and pray make it improbable.
Sits on sofa.
My dear fellow, there is nothing improbable about my explanation at all. In fact, it's perfectly ordinary. Old Mr. Thomas Cardew, who adopted me when I was a little boy, made himself guardian to his granddaughter, Miss Louis Cardew. He accepted me as her uncle from motives of respect that you could not possibly appreciate. Lives at my home in the country under the charge of the admirable Earnest, mistress.
Where is that place in the country, by the way?
That is nothing to you, dear boy. You're not going to be invited. I may tell you candidly that the place is not in Shropshire.
I suspected that, my dear fellow. I have bunburied all over Shropshire on 2 separate occasions. Now go on. Why are you Ernest in town and Jack in the country?
My dear Alfie, I don't know whether you will be able to understand my real motives. You are hardly serious enough. When one is placed in the position of guardian, to adopt a very high moral tone of all subjects. It's one's duty to do so. And as a high moral tone can hardly be said to conduce very much to injure one's health or one's happiness. In order to get up to town, I have always pretended to have a younger brother of the name Earnest, who lives in the Albany and gets into the most dreadful scrapes. That, my dear Alfie, is the whole truth, pure and simple.
The truth is really pure and never simple. Modern life would be very tedious if you were either, and modern literature a complete impossibility.
That wouldn't be at all a bad thing.
Literary criticism is not my forte, my dear fellow. Don't try it. You should leave that to the people who haven't been at a university. They do it so well in the daily papers. What you really are is a bunburyist. I was quite right in saying that you were a bunburyist. You are one of the most advanced bunburyists I know.
What on earth do you mean?
You have invented a very useful younger brother called Earnest in order that you may be able to come up to town as often as you like. But I have invented an invaluable permanent invalid called Bunbury in order that I may be able to go down into the country whenever I choose. Bunbury is perfectly invaluable. If it wasn't Bunbury's extraordinary bad health, for instance, I wouldn't be able to dine at you with Willies tonight, for I have been really engaged to Aunt Augusta for more than a week.
I haven't asked you to dine with me anywhere tonight.
I know you're absurdly careless about sending out invitations. It's very foolish of you. Nothing annoys people as much as not receiving invitations.
You had much better dine with your Aunt Augusta.
I haven't the smallest intention of doing anything of that kind. To begin with, I dine there on Monday, and once a week is quite enough to dine with one's own relation. In the second place, whenever I do dine there, I'm always treated as a member of family and sent down with either no women at all or 2. In the third place, I know perfectly well whom she will place me next to tonight. She will place me next to Mary Farquhar, who always flirts with her own husband across the dinner table. That is not very pleasant. Indeed, it is not even decent. And that sort of thing is enormously on increase. The amount of women in London who flirt with their own husbands is perfectly scandalous. It looks so bad. It is simply washing one's clean linen in public. Besides, now I know you be a confirmed bunburist. I naturally want to talk to you about bunburying. I want to tell you the rules.
I'm not a barbarist at all. If Gwendolen accepts me, I'm going to kill my brother. Indeed, I think I'll kill him in any case. This leaves a little too much interested in him. It's rather a bore. So, to get rid of him, strongly advise you to do the same with your invalid friend who has upset me.
Nothing will induce me to part with Bunbury. And if you ever get married, which seems to be extremely problematic, you will be very glad to know Bunbury. A man who marries without knowing Bunbury has a very tedious time of it.
That is nonsense. If I marry a charming girl like Gwendolen, and she is the only girl I ever saw in my life that I would marry, I certainly won't want to know Bunbury.
Then your wife will. You don't seem to realize that in married life, 3 is company and 2 is none.
That, my dear young friend, is the theory that the corrupt French drama has been propounding for the last 50.
Yes, and that's the happy English home has proved in half the time.
For heaven's sake, don't try to be cynical. It's perfectly easy to be cynical.
My dear fellow, it isn't easy to be anything nowadays. There's such a lot of beastly competition about.
There's a sound of an electric bell. Algernon.
That must be Aunt Augusta. Only relatives or creditors ever ring in that Warnagian manner. Now, if I get out of the way for 10 minutes so that you can have an opportunity for proposing to Gwendolen, may I dine with you tonight at Willie's?
I suppose so, if you want to.
Yes, but you must be serious about it. I hate people who are not serious about meals. It is so shallow of them.
Enter Lane. Lane.
Lady Bracknell and Miss Fairfax.
Algernon goes forward to meet them. Enter Lady Bracknell and Gwendolen.
Good afternoon, dear Algernon. I hope you are behaving very well.
I'm feeling very well, Aunt Augusta.
That's not quite the same thing. In fact, the two things rarely go together.
Lady Bracknell sees Jack and goes to him with icy coldness.
Dear me, you are smart.
I am always smart, aren't I, Mr. Worthing?
You're quite perfect, Miss Fairfax.
Oh, I hope I'm not that. It would leave no room for development, and I intend to develop in many directions.
Gwendolen and Jack sit down together in the corner.
I'm sorry if we were a little late, Algernon, but I was obliged to call my dear Lady Harbury. I hadn't been there since her poor husband's death. I never saw a woman so altered. She looks quite 20 years younger, and now I'll have a cup of tea and one of those nice cucumber sandwiches you promised me.
Certainly, Aunt Augusta.
Algernon goes over to tea table.
Won't you come and sit here, Gwendolen?
Thanks, Mama. I'm quite comfortable where I am.
Algernon picking up empty plates in horror.
Good heavens, Lane. Why are there no cucumber sandwiches? I ordered them specially.
There were no cucumbers in the market this morning, sir. I went down twice.
No cucumbers?
No, sir, not even for ready money.
That will do, Lane. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Lane goes out.
I'm greatly distressed, Aunt Augusta, about there being no cucumbers, not even for ready money.
It really makes no matter, Algernon. I have some crumpets with Lady Harbury, who seems to me to be living entirely for pleasure now.
I hear that her hair has turned quite gold from grief.
It certainly has changed color. From what cause I, of course, cannot say. Thank you.
Algernon crosses and hands tea.
Thank you. I've quite a treat for you tonight, Algeron. I'm going to send you down with Mary Farquhar. She's such a nice woman and so attentive to her husband. It's delightful to watch them.
I'm afraid, Aunt Augusta, I shall have to give up the pleasure of dining with you tonight after all.
I hope not, Algeron. It would put my table completely out. Your uncle would have to dine upstairs. Fortunately, he's accustomed to that.
It is a great bore, and I need hardly say a terrible disappointment to me. But the fact is, I have just had a telegram to say my poor friend Bunbury is very ill again.
Algernon exchanges glances with Jack.
They seem to think I should be with him.
It is very strange. This Mr. Banbury seems to suffer from curiously bad health.
Yes, poor Bunbury is a dreadful invalid.
Well, I must say, Algeron, that I think it is high time that Mr. Branbury made up his mind whether he was going to live or die. This silly shalling with the question is absurd, nor do I in any way approve of the modern sympathy with invalids. I consider it morbid. Illness of any kind is hardly a thing to be encouraged in others. Health is the primary duty of life. I'm always telling that to your poor uncle, but he never seems to take much notice. As far as any improvement in his ailments goes, I should be obliged if you would ask Mr. Branbury for me to be kind enough to have a relapse on Saturday, for I rely on you to arrange my music for me. It is my last reception, and one wants something that will encourage conversation, particularly at the end of the season when everyone has practically said whatever they had to say, which in most cases was probably not much.
I'll speak to Bunbury, Aunt Augusta, if he is still conscious, and I think I can promise you that he'll be all right by Saturday. Of course, the music is a great difficulty. You see, if one plays a good music, people don't listen. If one plays bad music, people don't talk. But I'll run over the program I've drawn out if you will kindly come into the next room for a moment.
Thank you, Algeron. It is very thoughtful of you.
Lady Bracknell rises and follows Algernon.
I'm sure the program would be delightful after a few expurgations. French songs I cannot possibly allow. People always seem to think that they are improper and either look shocked, which is vulgar, or laugh, which is worse. But German sounds a thoroughly respectable language, and indeed, I believe is so. Gwendolen, you will accompany me.
Certainly, Mama.
Lady Bracknell and Algernon goes into the music room. Gwendolen remains behind. Charming day it has been, Miss Fairfax.
Pray don't talk to me about the weather, Mr. Worthing. Whenever people talk to me about the weather, I always feel quite certain that they mean something else. And that makes me so nervous.
I do mean something else.
I thought so. In fact, I am never wrong.
And I would like to be allowed to take advantage of Lady Bracknell's temporary absence.
I would certainly advise you to do so. Mama has a way of coming back suddenly in a room that I had often had to speak to her about.
Miss Fairfax, ever since I met you, I have admired you more than any girl I have ever met. Since I met you.
Yes, I am quite aware of the fact, and I often wish that in public, at any rate, you had been more demonstrative. For me, you have always had an irresistible fascination. Even before I met you, I was far from indifferent to you.
Jack looks at her in amazement.
We live, as I hope you know, Mr. Worthing, in an age of ideals. The fact is constantly mentioned in the more expensive monthly magazines and has reached the provincial pulpits, I am told. And my ideal has always been to love someone of the name of Earnest. There is something in that name that inspires absolute confidence. The moment Algernon first mentioned to me that he had a friend called Ernest, I knew I was destined to love you.
You really love me, Gwendolen?
Passionately.
Darling, you don't know how happy you have made me.
My own Ernest.
But you really don't mean to say that you couldn't love me if my name wasn't Ernest?
But your name is Ernest.
Yes, I know it is, but supposing it was something else, do you mean to say you couldn't love me then?
That is clearly a metaphysical speculation, and like most metaphysical speculations, has very little reference at all to the actual facts of real life as we know them.
Personally, darling, to speak quite candidly, I don't much care about the name of Ernest. I don't think the name suits me at all.
It suits you perfectly. It is a divine name. It has a music of its own. It produces vibrations.
Well, really, Gwendolyn, I must say I think there are lots of other much nicer names. I think Jack, for instance, a charming name.
Jack? No, there is very little music in the name Jack, if any at all indeed. It does not thrill. It produces absolutely no vibrations. I have known several Jacks, and they all, without exception, were more than usually played. Besides, Jack is a notorious domesticity for John, and I pity any woman who is married to a man called John. She would probably never be allowed to know the intrinsic pleasure of a single moment's solitude. The only really safe name is Ernest.
Gwendolyn, I must get personal at once. I mean, we must get married at once. There is no time to be lost.
Married, Mr. Worthing?
Well, surely you know that I love you, and you led me to believe, Miss Fairfax, that you were not absolutely indifferent to me.
I adore you, but you haven't proposed to me yet. Nothing has been said at all about marriage. The subject has not even been touched on.
Well, may I propose to you now?
I think it would be an admirable opportunity and to spare you any possible disappointment. But, Mr. Worthing, I think it only fair to tell you quite frankly beforehand that I am fully determined to accept you.
Gwendolyn,
Yes, Mr. Worthing, what have you got to say to me?
you know what I have got to say to you.
Yes, but you don't say it.
Gwendolyn, will you marry me?
Of
Jack,
course I will, darling. How long have you been about it? I am afraid you have had very little experience in how to propose.
my own one, I have never loved anyone in the world but you.
Yes, but men often propose for practice. I know my brother Gerald does. All my girl friends tell me so. What wonderfully blue eyes you have, Ernest. They are quite blue. I hope you will always look at me just like that, especially when there are other people present.
Enter Lady Bracknell. Mr. Worthing, rise, sir, from this semi-recumbent posture. It is most indecorous.
Mama, I must beg you to retire. There is no place for you. Besides, Mr. Worthing has not quite finished yet.
Finished, what may I ask?
I am engaged to Mr. Worthing, Mama.
They rise together.
Pardon me, you're not engaged to anyone. When you do become engaged to someone, I, or your father, should his health permit him, will inform you of the fact. An engagement should come on a young girl as a surprise, pleasant or unpleasant, as the case may be. It is hardly a matter that she should be allowed to arrange for herself. And now I have a few questions to put to you, Mr. Worthing. While I am making these inquiries, you, Gwendolen, will wait for me below in the carriage.
Mama.
In the carriage, Gwendolen.
Gwendolyn goes to the door. She and Jack blow kisses to each other behind Lady Bracknell's back. Lady Bracknell looks vaguely about as if she could not understand what the noise was. Finally turns round.
Gwendolen, the carriage.
Yes, Mama.
Goes out, looking back at Jack. Lady Bracknell, sitting down.
You can take a seat, Mr. Worthing.
Lady Bracknell looks in her pocket for notebook and pens. Thank you, Lady Bracknell. I prefer standing.
Lady Bracknell has a pencil and notebook in hand. I feel bound to tell you that you're not down on my list of eligible men, although I have the same list as the dear Duchess of Bolton has. We work together, in fact. However, I'm quite ready to enter your name, should your answers be what a really affectionate mother requires. Do you smoke?
Well, yes, I must admit I smoke.
I'm glad to hear it. A man should always have an occupation of some kind. There are far too many idle men in London as it is. How old are you?
29.
A very good age to be married at. I have always been of the opinion that a man who desires to get married should know everything or nothing. Which do you know?
I know nothing, Lady Bracknell.
I'm pleased to hear it. I do not approve of anything that tampers with natural ignorance. Ignorance is like a delicate, exotic fruit. Touch it, and the bloom is gone. The whole theory of modern education is radically unsound. Fortunately, in England, at any rate, education produces no effect whatsoever. If it did, it would prove a serious danger to the upper classes and probably lead to acts of violence in Grosvenor Square. What is your income?
Between 7 and 8,000 a year.
In land or in investments?
In investments, chiefly.
That is satisfactory. What between the duties expected of one's during one's lifetime and the duties exacted from one's death, land has ceased to be either a profit or a pleasure. It gives one possession and prevents one from keeping it up. That's all that can be said about land.
I have a country house with some land, of course, attached to it, about 1,500 acres, I believe. But I don't depend on that for my real income. In fact, as far as I can make out, the poachers are the only people who make anything out of it.
A country house. How many bedrooms? Well, that point can be cleared up afterwards. You have a townhouse, I hope. A girl with a simple, unspoiled nature like Gwendolen could hardly be expected to reside in the country.
Well, I own a house in Belgrave Square, but it's let by the year to Lady Bloxham. Of course, I can get it back whenever I like at 6 months' notice.
Lady Bloxham? I don't know her.
Oh, she knows about very little. She is a lady considerably advanced in years.
Ah, nowadays, that is no guarantee of respectability of character. What number is Belgrave Square?
149.
That unfashionable side. I thought that was something. However, that could easily be altered.
Do you mean the fashion or the side? Lady Bracknell?
Both if necessary, I presume. What are your politics?
Well, I'm afraid I really have none. I am a liberal unionist.
Oh, they count as stories. They dine with us. Or come in the evening at any rate. Now to minor matters. Are your parents living?
I have lost both my parents.
Both. To lose one parent, Mr. Worthing, may be regarded as a misfortune. To lose both looks like carelessness. Who was your father? He was evidently a man of some wealth. Was he born in what the radical papers call the purple of commerce, or did he rise from the ranks of aristocracy?
I'm afraid I really don't know. The fact is, Lady Bracknell, I said I had lost my parents. It would be nearer the truth to say that my parents seem to have lost me. I don't actually know who I am by birth. I was Well, I was found.
Found?
The late Mr. Thomas Cardew, an old gentleman of a very charitable and kindly disposition, found me and gave me the name of Worthing because he happened to have a first-class ticket for Worthing in his pocket at the time. Worthing is a place in Sussex. It's a seaside resort.
Where did the charitable gentleman who had a first class ticket for the seaside resort find you?
In a handbag?
A handbag?
Yes, Lady Bracknell, I was in a handbag. A somewhat large black leather handbag with handles to it. An ordinary handbag, in fact.
In what locality did this Mr. James or Thomas Cardew come across this ordinary handbag?
In the cloakroom at Victoria Station. It was given to him in mistake for his own.
The cloakroom at Victoria Station?
Yes, the Brighton line.
The line is immaterial, Mr. Worthing. I confess I feel somewhat bewildered by what you have just told me. To be born, or at any rate bred, in a handbag, whether it has handles or not, seems to me to display a contempt for the ordinary decencies of the family life that reminds one of the worst excesses of the French Revolution. And I presume you know what the unfortunate moments led to. As for the particular locality in which the handbag was found, a cloakroom at a railway station might serve to conceal a social indiscretion, has probably indeed been used for the purpose before now, but it could hardly be regarded as an assured basis for a recognized position in good society.
May I ask you then what you would advise me to do? I need hardly say I would do anything in the world to ensure Gwendolyn's happiness.
I would strongly advise you, Mr. Worthing, to try and acquire some relations as soon as possible and to make a definite effort to produce at any rate one parent of either sex before the season is quite over.
Well, I don't see how I could possibly manage to do that. I can produce the handbag at any moment. It is in my dressing room at home. I really think that should satisfy you, Lady Bracknell.
Me, sir? What has it to do with me? You can hardly imagine that I and Lord Bracknell would dream of allowing our only daughter, a girl brought up with the utmost care, to marry into a cloakroom, and from an alliance with a parcel. Good morning, Mr. Worthing.
Lady Bracknell speaks out in majestic indignation. Good morning. Algernon from the other room strikes up the wedding march, looks perfectly furious and goes to the door. For goodness sake, don't play that costly tune, Algie. How idiotic you are. The music stops and Algernon enters cheerily.
Didn't it go off all right, old boy? You don't mean to say Gwendolyn refused you. I know it is a way she has. She is always refusing people. I think it's most ill-natured of her.
Oh, Gwendolyn is as bright as a trivet. As far as she's concerned, we are engaged. Her mother is perfectly unbearable. Never met such a gorgon. I don't really know what a gorgon is like, but I'm quite sure that Lady Bracknell is one. In any case, she's a monster without being a myth, which is rather unfair. I beg your pardon, Algie. I suppose I shouldn't talk about your own aunt in that way before you.
My dear boy, I love hearing my relations abused. It is the only thing that makes me put up with them at all. Relations are simply a tedious pack of people who haven't got the remotest knowledge of how to live, nor the smallest instinct about when to die.
Oh, that's nonsense.
It isn't.
Well, I would argue about the matter. You always want to argue about things.
That is exactly what things were originally made for.
Upon my word, if I thought that, I would shoot myself. You don't think there is any chance of Gwendolyn becoming like her mother in about 150 years? Do you, Elsie?
All women become like their mothers. That is their tragedy. No man does. That's his.
Is that clever?
It's perfectly phrased and quite as true as any observation in civilized life should be.
I'm sick to death of cleverness. Everybody is clever nowadays. I can't go anywhere without meeting clever people. The thing has become an absolute public nuisance. I wish to goodness we had a few fools left.
We have.
I should extremely like to meet them. What do they talk about?
The fools. Oh, about the clever people, of course.
What fool?
By the way, did you tell Gwendolyn the truth about your being Earnest in town and Jack in the country?
My dear fellow, the truth isn't quite the sort of thing one tells to a nice, sweet, refined girl. What extraordinary ideas you have about the way to behave to a woman.
The only way to behave to a woman is to make love to her if she's pretty and to someone else if she's plain.
Oh, that is nonsense.
What about your brothers? What about the profligate Earnest?
Oh, at the end of the week, I shall have got rid of him. I'll say he died in Paris. Lots of people died like
Yes, but it's hereditary, my dear fellow. It's a sort of thing that runs in families. You had much better say a severe chill.
You're sure a severe chill isn't hereditary or anything of that kind?
Of course it isn't.
Very well then, my poor brother Earnest is carried off suddenly in Paris by a severe chill. That gets rid of him.
But I thought you said that Miss Cardew was a little too much interested in your poor brother, Ernest. Won't she feel his loss a good deal?
Oh, that is all right. Cicely is not a silly romantic girl, I am glad to say. She has got a capital appetite, goes long walks, and paying no attention at all to her lessons.
I would rather like to see Cecily.
I will take very good care you never do. She is excessively pretty and she's only just 18.
Have you told Gwendolyn that you have an excessively pretty ward who is just 18?
Oh, one doesn't blurt these things out to people. Cicely and Gwendolyn are perfectly certain to be extremely great friends. I'll bet you anything you like that half an hour after they have met, they'll be calling each other sister.
Women only do that when they have called each other a lot of things first. Now, my dear boy, if we want to get a good table at Willie's, we really must go and dress. Do you know it's nearly 7?
Oh, it always is nearly 7.
Well, I'm hungry.
I never knew you when you weren't.
What shall we do after dinner? Go to the theater?
Oh no, I love listening.
Well, let us go to the club then.
Oh no, I hate talking.
Well, we might trot round to the Empire at 10.
Oh no, I can bear looking at things. It's so silly.
Well, what shall we do then?
Nothing.
It is awfully hard work doing nothing. However, I don't mind work when there is no definite object of any kind.
Lane enters.
Miss Fairfax.
Gwendolyn enters and Lane goes out.
Gwendolyn, upon my word.
Gwendolyn?
I'll be Gwendolyn while she's away.
Okay.
Algie, kindly turn your back. I have something very particular to say to Mr. Worthing.
Really, Gwendolyn? I don't think I can allow this at all.
Algie, you always adopt a strict, immoral attitude towards life. You're not quite old enough to do that.
Algernon retires to the fireplace. My own darling.
Earnest, we may never be married. From the expression on Mamma's face, I fear we never shall. Few parents nowadays pay any regard to what their children say to them. The old-fashioned respect for the young is fast dying out. Whatever influence I ever had may prevent us from becoming a man and wife. I may marry someone else and marry often. Nothing that she can possibly do can alter my eternal devotion to you.
Dear Gwendolyn,
The story of your romantic origin, as related to me by Mamma, with unpleasing comments, has naturally stirred the deeper fibers of my nature. Your Christian name has an irresistible fascination. The simplicity of your character makes you exquisitely incomprehensible to me. Your town address at the Albany, I have. What is your address in the country?
the Manor House, Woolton, Hertfordshire. Algernon, who has been carefully listening, smiles to himself and writes the address on his shirt cuff, then picks up the railway guide.
There is a good postal service, I suppose. It may be necessary to do something desperate. That, of course, will require serious consideration. I will communicate with you daily.
My own one,
How long do you remain in town?
till Monday.
Good, Algie. You may turn round now.
Thanks, I've turned round already.
You may also ring the bell.
You will let me see you to your carriage, my own darling?
Certainly.
Lane enters. Jack says to Lane, I'll see Miss Fairfax out.
Yes, sir.
Jack and Gwendolyn go off. Lane presents several letters on a salver to Algernon. It is to be surmised that they are all bills, as Algernon, after looking at the envelopes, tears them out.
A glass of sherry, Lane.
Yes, sir.
Tomorrow, Lane, I'm going bunburying.
Yes, sir.
I shall probably not be back till Monday. You can put my dress clothes, my smoking jacket, and all the Bunbury suits.
Yes, sir.
I hope tomorrow will be a fine day, Lane.
It never is, sir.
Lane, you're a perfect pessimist.
I do my best to give satisfaction, sir.
Jack enters and Lane goes off. There is this sensible, intellectual girl, the only girl I ever cared for in my life. What on earth are you so amused at?
Oh, I'm a little anxious about poor Bunbury, that's all.
If you don't take care, your poor friend Bunbury will get you into a serious scrape someday.
I love scrapes. They are the only things that are never serious.
Oh, that's nonsense, Algie. You never talk anything but nonsense.
Nobody ever does.
Jack looks indignantly at him and leaves the room. Algernon lights a cigarette, reads the chart up, and smiles. The end of Act 1.
Ma'am, we are done with Act 1.
Wonderful, guys. It was amazing.
Thank you, ma'am.
We had some disturbances and problems in between, but that's okay. Next time we'll solve it. More and more people will watch us in YouTube, and it is good that we are sharing the screen so that they can also read along with us. So I think we'll do this once every week. And once it catches on, we can do more frequently.
Yes,
So
ma'am. Every Saturday.
every Saturday, yes. Thank you all. Thank you all for your enthusiastic participation. Thank you all our friends in YouTube for joining us. We'll meet again next Saturday. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Bye-bye.